Good afternoon, everybody. This is once again Ted the Speed Learner, and we are going to be covering the healthcare bill, part number 31. And we have promulgation of rules, unique health plan identifier. The Secretary shall promulgate a final rule to establish a unique health plan identifier as described in Section 1173B of the Social Security Act. Alrighty. Obviously, we're going to need this. Going to Social Security Act, Section 1173, and they're wanting us to go to, let's see, okay, that's A. Okay, here it is, the unique health identifiers. Trying to get this adjusted so you can kind of read along with me. The Secretary shall adopt standards providing for a standard unique health identifier. And boy, this is just really not going there. Hey, there we go. The Secretary shall adopt standards providing for a standard unique health identifier for each individual, employer, health plan, and healthcare provider for use in the healthcare system, and carrying out the preceding sentence for each health plan and healthcare provider. The Secretary shall take into account multiple uses for identifiers in multiple locations and specify classifications for healthcare providers. Okay. So, we're going to have a unique health identifier for employees, health identifier for employers, health identifiers for health plans, and health identifiers for healthcare providers. How do we use these identifiers? Okay, the code sets. The Secretary shall adopt standards that select code sets for appropriate data elements for the transactions referred to as whatever. Okay, so basically, the employee will have a health code, the employer will have a health code, the health plan will have a health code, and the healthcare provider will have a health code. So when you're going through your little statements, you'll get these little statements from the health insurance companies, from the healthcare providers, etc., etc. You'll be able to see your code, their code, so on and so forth. The Secretary shall adopt standards that establish code sets for such data elements if no code sets for the data elements have been developed. So if they don't have a code for a healthcare provider, if they don't have a code for an employer, so on and so forth, the Secretary shall establish code sets for them. Alrighty, the Secretary shall establish efficient and low-cost procedures for distribution, including electronic distribution of code sets and modifications made to code sets, so on and so forth. Okay, so in other words, when they come up with all these codes for your employer, for the employee, for the healthcare provider, and for the health insurance, yada yada yada, and so on and so forth, what they're going to do is send these codes electronically, which is practically nothing. It'll be pretty much free, and then you'll be able to read them and so on and so forth without the government paying out the... Because if the government had to mail these out through the Postal Service, can you imagine how much that's going to cost? No. They'll just mail it to you electronically, and then they won't have to pay anything. Okay. And this thing goes on and on and on and on, and I'm not going to read all this to you. You can read this for yourself if you want. Okay? Okay. Now, these unique health plan identifiers they're going to be based on the input from the National Committee on Vital and Health Statistics. So the National Committee on Vital and Health Statistics are going to come up with these codes, and if the Secretary approves of them, boom, that's the codes you get. The Secretary may do this on an interim final basis, and such rules shall be effective no later than October 1st of 2012. So now these, well, at the end of the year, these rules will become permanent. The Secretary shall promulgate a final rule to establish a standard for electronic funds transfer. So in other words, how funds are transferred from you to your health insurance, from you to your health care provider, from the health insurance to the health care provider. If you're on health insurance A and you send your payments a certain way, then when you decide you will go on health insurance B, it's going to be set the exact same way. And they're not going to be separate procedures for each health insurance company. That's the way this is going to be fixed up. And these standards have been described in Section 1173A2J of the Social Security Act as added by subsection B2A of this Act. The Secretary may do so on an interim financial basis and shall adopt such a standard no later than, well, January 1st of this year, in a manner ensuring that such standard is effective no later than January 1st of 2014. Okay, and we go on here. Health claims attachments. These are attachments you make. Let's say your health care provider provides more detailed information about your illness and you're trying to make a claim, so you will attach these things that you get from your doctor to your health claim, then send it to the health insurance. All right, the Secretary will establish he'll formally declare a final rule to establish a transaction standard and a single set of associated operating rules for health claims attachments, as described as it goes on and on and on. And these operating rules will be effective as of January 1st, 2014. And, in other words, you're going to know about them in January 2014, and they have to be implemented by January of 2016. Expansion of electronic transactions in Medicare. Section 1862A of the Social Security Act is amended. So we have to now go back we're going to go now to Social Security Act Section 1862. Exclusions from coverage and Medicare as secondary payer. So this is all the things that Medicare is not going to pay for. I'm guessing here, that's the way I get it. In other words, you're going to have a primary health insurance, and then Medicare is going to kick in when the primary health insurance decides it doesn't want to pay anymore. And this is all about that. Okay, so we have to go to paragraph number 23. And we go to number 23. Paragraph 23 says, which are the technical component of advanced diagnostic imaging services described in section 1830, for which payment is made under the fee schedule established under whatever, and that are furnished by a supplier as defined in section 1861, if such supplier is not accredited by an accreditation organization designated by the Secretary under section whatever. That's number 23. That's paragraph number 23. And apparently they're going to strike the "or" at the end of the paragraph. Well, I guess they have. I don't know. Looks like that's what they've done. They struck the paragraph, the "or" in that paragraph. Apparently it's not there anymore. It used to be, so there you go. Okay, they're changing paragraph 24 by striking the period and inserting the semicolon and "or." So, let's see. There it is. They took out the period and they put the word "or" there. And by inserting after paragraph 24 the following new paragraph, which is number 25. So apparently this paragraph 25 right here, and I'm going to scroll this down just a bit. This paragraph 25 right here has been added, and it says not later than January 1st, 2014, for which payment as other than electronic funds transfer or electronic remittance in a form as specified by in ASC whatever. But anyway, that paragraph right there has been added. Okay. Alright, now we're going to be talking about Subtitle C. We are now on page number 36 of this monster bill. Quality health insurance coverage for all Americans. Health insurance market reforms. Okay, these are reforms that are going to be made in the health insurance market. Now, we have an amendment to the Public Health Service Act, Part A of Title 27 of the Public Health Service Act. Okay. Well, let's go to the Public Health Service Act. I did not know that we had a Public Health Service Act. Okay. Title 27. Okay, this is a compilation of Title 27 of the Public Health Services Act and related provisions. And this was amended through May 1st of 2010, reflecting amendments made by the Patient Protection and Affordable Care Act and Healthcare and Educational Reconciliation. Yeah, boy, wow. Huh. I'm going to let you read that right there. Right there. Okay, this has been prepared by the Office of the Legislative Counsel for the use of the U.S. House of Representatives. Woo! This was published in May of 2010. And it's interesting, I'm reading this in May of 2012. Okay, now let's go down here. Let's shrink that down for just a second. Okay, now we have to find Subpart 1. We have found Subpart 1. Okay. There it is, people. Subpart 1. Portability, access, and renewal requirements. We are changing the general reform here. In Section 2701, by striking the section heading and subsection A and inserting the following. Section 2704. Okay. Alright, apparently they're striking all of this right here and adding the following. In general, a group health plan and a health insurance issuer not... A group health plan and a health insurance issuer offering group or individual health insurance coverage may not impose any pre-existing condition exclusion with respect to such plan or coverage. And by transferring such section as amended by subparagraph A so as to appear after the section 2703 added by paragraph 4, wow. Anyway, all this is so apparently what they've done is, boy, wow. Apparently they had exclusions for pre-existing health conditions in this whatever. In the Public Health Service Act, they had exclusions for pre-existing conditions. Those have now been wiped out. And that's what they're talking about here. And if you want to go and take a look at what they had and what they're going to have, you can take a look at that yourself. Fair health insurance premiums, prohibiting discriminatory premium rates. With respect to premium rate charged by a health insurance issuer for health insurance coverage offered in the individual or small group market, such rate shall vary with respect to particular plan or coverage involved only by whether such plan or coverage covers an individual or family, rating area, age, and tobacco use. So in other words, your rates will vary whether you have a family or you don't. If you have a family, it's going to of course be higher, and if you don't, that's okay. Depending on what state you live in, it'll vary by your age. I mean, obviously an older person is going to pay more than a younger person, and it will vary because of your tobacco use, but it will not vary because of a pre-existing condition. That's what I'm getting out of this. If I'm wrong, just go ahead and put a comment down below, and we'll talk about it. Such rate shall not vary with respect to particular plan or coverage involved by any other factor not described in this. Okay, so basically, your premiums to your health insurance company will vary based on age, where you live, whether you have an individual or family, and tobacco use, but it can't vary because of anything else. In other words, they can't charge you an arm, leg, hand, and foot because you have a pre-existing condition. That's not going to happen anymore. Now they're defining a rating area. Each state shall establish one or more rating areas within a state for the purpose of applying requirements of this title. So, your rates may be lower because you live in a big town rather than living in a rural area. I don't know. It may be the reverse. I don't know. It'd just be... You'll have to tell me. Whenever you find out, people, just leave it down here in the comments below. Alright. And, of course, the Secretary of Health and Human Services will review the rating areas that are established by each state under a subparagraph A to ensure the adequacy of such areas for purposes carrying out the required da-da-da-da. If the Secretary determines that the state's rating areas are not adequate or that a state does not establish such areas, the Secretary may establish rating areas for that state. So, if the state says, hey, these are the rating areas we're going to establish, and the Secretary says, no, that's not right, he'll establish them himself. He gets to override the state. Permissible age bands. The Secretary, in consultation with the National Association of Insurance Commissioners, shall define the permissible age bands for rating purposes under paragraph whatever. Okay. So, there are special rules for a large group market. And you can review that for yourself. We are now on page number 38. Guaranteed availability of coverage. Guaranteed insurance of coverage in the individual and group markets, subject to subsections B through E. Each health insurance issuer that offers health insurance coverage in the individual or group market in a state must accept every employer and individual in the state that applies for such coverage. So in other words, the health insurance plan that gets into the state exchange, and this is something I talked about in a previous video, okay, all these health insurance companies that are now in the state exchange, they can't deny an employer, they can't deny an individual just because they feel like it. They've got to come up with some very good reason or they can't deny them. Okay, now, if somebody wants to enroll in that particular health insurance company, they have to do it during the enrollment period. They can't do it just any old time. And the health insurance company can establish when that enrollment period will be. And you can look under Section 603 of the Employee Retirement Income Security Act of 1974 to see that. Except as provided in this section, if a health insurance issuer offers health insurance coverage in the individual group market, the issuer must renew or continue in force such coverage at the option of the plan sponsor or the individual as applicable. In other words, they can't change how much coverage you get whenever they darn well feel like it. We now have Section 2705, which says prohibiting discrimination against individual participants and beneficiaries based on health status. A group health plan and a health insurance issuer offering group or individual health insurance coverage may not establish rules for eligibility, including continued eligibility of any individual to enroll under the terms of the plan or coverage based on the following health status related factors in relation to the individual or dependent. Okay, so in other words, they can no longer say, hey, you got a pre-existing condition, so you can't be a part of our insurance coverage anymore. They can't do that. That's been totally taken off. And we're talking about your health status, your medical condition. They can't deny you coverage because of claims experience. They can't deny you coverage because of receipt of health care. They can't deny you coverage because of your medical history. And they can't deny you coverage because of your genetic information. If all of a sudden they discover that through your genetics that you're more prone to cancer than somebody else, they can't deny you coverage. Okay, evidence of insurability, including conditions arising out of acts of domestic violence. I'm not really sure about that. That one, I may want you guys to comment on that one. That's yeah. If for some reason you no longer have an arm or a leg or some other part of your body that's been taken out or whatever, they can't deny you coverage because of that. So, whew, that's a lot. Anyway, this video is getting far too long, so I'm going to cut it off for here. I will tell you more in the next video, so stay tuned.